An old man with white hair and beard, his clothes stained, walked through the revolving door of the Hargrave Royal Hotel, one of the most luxurious hotels in the heart of Manhattan. No one welcomed him. No one paid him any attention. A few employees mumbled complaints about the bad smell. Others scoffed and turned away. Only one person stopped, offered him her half-eaten lunchbox, and said softly, "I don't have much, but if you're hungry, please eat." "I don't mind at all." That person was Lisa Summers, an ordinary cleaning lady, living with her frail elderly grandparents in Brooklyn, who took 3 transit rides every day to get to work at the hotel. She wasn't remarkable in any way, not as beautiful as the female receptionists, not as skilled at flattery as other colleagues, but she had one thing, something the entire hotel seemed to have long forgotten: kindness. It was that kindness that thrust her into the center of a dirty scheme, that almost got her falsely accused, fired, and made her a thorn in the side of powerful people. But Lisa had no idea the old man she had given food to that day was not homeless, was not a pitiful old man, but was Rodrigo Pontalba, the secret owner of the Hargrave Royal Hotel, disguised to investigate internally after numerous reports of misconduct by management and staff. And from here, a shocking unmasking would unfold. The one once called the Stinky One would take action to punish the most arrogant, and the young woman who had been trampled upon would become a new symbol of integrity and compassion. Because sometimes the person you look down on today is the one holding your destiny, and kindness, when sown in the right place, can blossom, even in the most toxic environments. Lisa Summers was not born into wealth. She grew up in an old apartment on the 5th floor of a walk-up building in Brooklyn, raised by her grandparents, 2 elderly people living on a meager pension. Her parents had died in a large fire at a printing workshop over 15 years ago, leaving Lisa with a childhood full of deprivations, but never lacking in love. During the day, she worked at the Hargrave Royal Hotel, a place renowned for prices not meant for ordinary people. At night, she often walked home because she couldn't afford a taxi. Every early morning, she had to take 2 subway trains, then catch a bus to get to work on time. No one knew who she was. No one cared what she thought. To them, Lisa was just a shadow in a grey uniform, quietly mopping floors, changing bed linens, and cleaning up what others left behind. But Lisa still smiled, even if she was teased by colleagues, scolded by guests, or snapped at by management. She still greeted them with the gentlest eyes, because she knew if she let evil overcome her, she would be no better than them. Among her colleagues at the Hargrave Royal, the most feared was Jim Harrow, the housekeeping department manager. He frequently yelled, cursed, and always found ways to get those who weren't obedient a pay cut, a shift change, or worse, fired. And the most detestable was Jessie Cruz, a girl with a captivating appearance, who received generous tips from Western guests and always saw Lisa as a thorn in her side. She hated Lisa for her silence, for not flattering, not being fake, not being envious. Jessie believed that everyone around had to compete, to trample on others, while Lisa only knew how to bow her head and endure. "That girl doesn't belong in this world," Jessie had once whispered to a colleague. The world Jessie spoke of was the secret syndicate, where employees like her and manager Jim secretly ran a shady side business right on the upper floors of the hotel. A place Lisa had never set foot in, but was about to be dragged into, unwillingly. On a day of torrential rain, Lisa took a taxi to work as usual. The car got stuck in traffic that was gridlocked on the avenue. She anxiously looked at her watch, only 10 minutes left before her shift started. The driver kept glancing at the rearview mirror, his gaze making Lisa uncomfortable. Finally, she decided to get out of the car mid-street, took off her high heels, carried them in her hand, and ran through the pouring rain. She didn't know that. Just a few hours later, she would meet a strange man, and a few soft words would change her entire life. "Excuse me, could you tell me how to apply for a job at this hotel? I just need a job. Cleaning would be fine. I need to survive." During the lunch break, when everyone at the Hargrave Royale Hotel headed to the internal cafeteria, Lisa quietly took her lunchbox to a small outdoor eating area, located right beside the building. That place had no air conditioning, no luxurious cushioned seats, only a few old, decaying wooden tables and a few pigeons that occasionally swooped down, waiting for breadcrumbs. But for Lisa, it was a rare, peaceful corner in a suffocating place like Hargrave. She had just opened her lunchbox when an old figure approached. A faded long coat, worn-out shoes, messy white hair. The old man stood silently, not begging, just looking at the lunchbox with deep-set eyes and, with great politeness. Lisa hesitated for a second, then pushed the box towards him. "I'm still full. Please eat this for me. I know you're hungry." The man was momentarily startled. Then he sat down opposite her, nodding silently. "You're an angel. I've been walking all morning. No one would even look at me." "Thank you." Lisa smiled, sat and ate with him, not taking back the lunchbox. They began to talk, and pieces of their lives emerged. He said his name was Rodney. He used to be a manual laborer, and now he just hoped to find a cleaning job to get by. Lisa shared that she lived with her grandparents, her parents having died in a factory fire over 10 years ago. "I never met my parents, but I believe they would also share food with a stranger like this," she said softly. Rodney sat silently. A flicker of sadness crossed his face, but he still smiled. "You're the first person who has looked at me like a human being all month. I appreciate you very much." Before they parted, he asked, "Do you think I have a chance to get a job here, even as a janitor? I know how to clean. I can read too, even though I only finished 5th grade." Lisa thought for a few seconds, then nodded. "If you have a resume, come back tomorrow at this time. I'll take you to the HR department. But you should dress a bit more neatly. They tend to judge by appearances a lot." Rodney chuckled softly, placed the emptied lunchbox on the table, and bowed his head in thanks. "You don't know whose fate you've just changed." Lisa just smiled faintly, thinking he was being polite, but in Rodney's eyes, a very different light had just been kindled. The next day, right at lunchtime, Rodney returned, the same smile, the same eyes, and this time He carried an old, folded resume in his coat pocket. Lisa didn't know that. When she took his hand and walked towards the elevator, that was when the first gears of truth began to turn. Lisa walked with Mr. Rodney into the hotel's grand lobby. Although he had changed into a clean shirt and jeans, he still attracted curious glances, and quite a few disdainful ones. In the elevator, they accidentally ran into Jessie, who had just finished lunch, a trace of ketchup still on the corner of her mouth. She eyed Rodney from head to toe with a scornful look. "Oh my God, Lisa, who did you bring in here? Your father?" Before Lisa could reply, Jessie sneered. "Oh, I forgot. You don't have parents. Burned to death, didn't they?" Lisa froze. That sentence was like a knife. Her hands clenched so tightly that her knuckles turned white. Jessie took a step back. Provocatively, "What want to hit me? Try it, and then see if your grandmother in the hospital will still be left in peace." Lisa took a deep breath, closed her eyes. She didn't hit, didn't say anything, just bent down, took Rodney's hand, and stepped out of the elevator. The old man gently squeezed her hand. "Don't let others drag you down with their words." They reached the HR office, but the employee in charge informed them that Rodney's application had to be approved by the head of the housekeeping department, meaning Jim Harrow. And Jim, as usual, was sitting with his feet up in his office, patting his full stomach after a meal, his face scowling because his spaghetti didn't have enough cheese. When Lisa and Rodney stood at the door, Jim glanced over and sighed as if he had just seen a pile of trash. "Lisa, what is this, sir? This is Mr. Rodney. He wants to apply for the vacant janitor position. I brought him up to submit his application." Jim burst out laughing. "What kind of person did you find? Look at this guy. Weak, dirty, stinks. This is a 5-star hotel, not a refugee center," Lisa calmly replied. "He doesn't have much, but he is very polite and well-intentioned. I believe he can do the job." Jim growled, slamming his hand on the table. "I don't need someone with good intentions. I need someone young, sexy, to make a good impression on the customers." Rodney, still maintaining a slight smile, spoke up. "If I can't do the job, you can fire me any time." Jim turned to Lisa. "Whose side are you on, this saintly old man's? Get out of here before I puke my lunch." Lisa bowed her head and led Mr. Rodney out. A wave of helpless, bitter frustration washed over her. But Mr. Rodney still smiled. "It's okay, young lady. This place doesn't accept me. But you've given me respect, and that's more valuable than getting the job." Lisa nodded slightly, not daring to say more. She felt angry, not because Jim had humiliated her, but because so few people still knew what kindness was. When Lisa returned to the changing room, Jessie was waiting. She cast a gaze as sharp as a knife. "Hey, who do you think you are? Bringing a beggar into the hotel, trying to score points with the boss?" Lisa gave a faint smile. "If helping a hungry person bothers you so much, then I hope you'll be bothered for the rest of your life." Jessie jumped up, pointing at Lisa's face. "I'll make you regret this." You think I don't know your game, playing innocent in front of Alvin, bringing in an old man to stage a humanitarian drama? You should remember, there's no place for people like you here." Lisa didn't reply, because she knew those who are weak-spirited are often the loudest. The next day, right at lunchtime, Mr. Rodney returned to the outdoor eating area, still with that gentle smile. And this time he wore an old beige shirt, worn-out jeans, and carried a resume folded in 3 in his hand. "Lisa was delighted. I didn't think you'd really come back. This outfit looks fine. Don't worry." Rodney scratched his head. Smiling, "I did as you advised. I'm just afraid I still don't look presentable enough. But this is the best set of clothes I have, without time for lunch." Lisa immediately led him into the main building. She wanted to take advantage of the time when the HR department wasn't too busy. They both walked through the long corridor, past walls covered with photos of VIP guests, and stepped into the elevator. In the elevator, they ran into Jessie again. And this time, Jessie didn't just glance but spat out sharp words. "What the hell is this, Lisa? Are you bringing a vagrant into the hotel, or is this a new role for your humanitarian movie?" Lisa held back her anger, but Jessie didn't stop. "Oh, I forgot. You don't have parents to teach you what's right or wrong, so how would you know who should come in and who shouldn't?" That sentence was like an invisible slap. Lisa turned, her eyes hardening, but Mr. Rodney just smiled gently. "It's okay, child. We don't need to respond to people who have never been loved properly." They reached the HR office and were once again redirected to Jim Harrow's office. Lisa hesitated. She knew this wouldn't be easy, but Mr. Rodney gently squeezed her hand. "Just let me try. At worst, I'll go back to that familiar seat out there. But if we don't try, we'll always wonder, what if?" As soon as Jim's office door opened, the air became heavy. Jim was reading documents, scowling, muttering curses, until he looked up and saw Rodney. He threw the stack of papers on the table, yelling, "You again, Lisa." "I thought I made it clear I don't deal with types like this," Lisa said calmly. "Mr. Rodney is here to apply for a job. He has a resume. His health is stable. We're short on night cleaners, aren't we?" Jim jumped up, pointing his finger at Rodney's face. "Where do you think this is?" "A charity station. Look at yourself, filthy, smelly, old and weak. I don't hire trash." Rodney still maintained his smile. "If I can't do the work, you can fire me immediately. I'm just asking for a chance." Jim slammed the table. "I don't have time for cheap, sentimental tricks. Get out." Lisa stepped forward, positioning herself between them, her voice trembling but firm. "You don't need to humiliate him like that. He came here respectfully, has a resume, and a recommendation. That's more than many people working here who lack basic human decency." Jim sneered. "You're defending him. Fine. Then tomorrow I'm cutting your shifts. Let's see how you survive when you don't have money to pay your old lady's hospital bills." Lisa stepped back, stunned. That remark was like a final, crushing blow. Rodney remained silent. Then he turned to her, a slight smile on his face. "You don't need to say anything more. Let's go." They walked out of the office, no one speaking. Lisa hid her tears, while Rodney maintained his composure as if he were used to being looked down upon. Before leaving, he turned back and said softly, "There are those who use power to humiliate others. But power doesn't last. Kindness can go very far." Lisa didn't know that very sentence was the first warning of an impending storm, and those who were arrogant were about to be brought down by the very person they had scorned the most. That afternoon, Lisa returned to her usual work. Though her hands still held the mop, her mind kept replaying the image of Mr. Rodney being berated, chased away as if he were worthless trash. She quietly cleaned, avoiding Jesse's prying eyes, and told herself, "I tried. Even if I couldn't help, at least I didn't stand by and watch someone get insulted." In the early evening, as Lisa had just finished her shift and was about to change her uniform, she saw Jim stride past the break room, his face furious, his footsteps heavy as if he were about to explode. Following him was Rick, the lewd and slovenly night shift employee, whispering something that made Jim snap. "Shut up! I'm about to kill someone." Lisa glanced but didn't ask. She didn't want to get involved in any more trouble. But just 10 minutes later, a sight made her freeze completely. The person holding the mop, walking down the third-floor hallway, was Mr. Rodney, in a silver-grey janitor's uniform, a name tag Rodney, maintenance pinned to his shoulder. He moved lightly, as if he had been familiar with this place for a long time. Lisa ran over, not believing her eyes. "Sir, you got the job?" "How I thought Mr. Jim rejected you." Rodney smiled brighter than usual. "Jim didn't hire me, but another manager did." A tall, bright-faced man who spoke decently. He looked at me and said, "Would you like to start your shift today?" So I agreed immediately. Lisa was silent for a few seconds. "Sir Alvin?" she whispered. Rodney nodded slightly. "Yes, Alvin. He was the first person here who didn't ask me how old I was, didn't tell me to take a shower, didn't ask me what grade I finished, only asked, 'Do you want to work?'" Lisa smiled, moved. "He's a good person. I knew it. Thank heavens someone finally saw who you are, not what you wear." Rodney gently touched Lisa's shoulder. "Not everyone is as kind as you. You were the first person to bring me here. If it weren't for you, I would have given up after Jim yelled at me." Lisa bowed her head. Flustered, I didn't help much. Rodney shook his head. "You did what few dare to do, give others faith." That evening, as Lisa left the hotel, she passed by the staff break room. Jesse was arguing with someone on the phone. Trina was applying thick lipstick, and Rick was laughing lewdly. The three of them seemed unaware that a new breeze had quietly swept through the hallway, and they didn't know the person who had just been hired as a janitor was the first link in a chain of changes that would shake the entire Hargrave Royale Hotel. A few steps ahead, Rodney was still diligently cleaning each tile, his hand trembling slightly, but his eyes bright. Lisa watched him. and felt her heart soften. Not because Mr. Rodney got a job, but because she knew kindness sometimes doesn't need to shout. It just needs to be sown in the right place, and it will silently sprout. Less than a week after Mr. Rodney officially started his job, the atmosphere in the Hargrave Royal Hotel began to change, but not in a pleasant way. Jessie, ever since Lisa embarrassed her in front of Alvin for scolding Rodney, began to be unusually silent. No more insinuations, no more glares as sharp as knives. But it was that very silence that made Lisa more uneasy than any scolding. Rick started to gather and whisper with Trina in the corner of the emergency staircase. Both often carried strange bags, wore heavy makeup, and appeared on the 7th floor, a place normally unoccupied by guests. Lisa didn't want to meddle in other people's affairs, but she began to feel that something was very wrong, and her intuition was correct. That evening, Lisa was assigned by Jim to clean VIP room 123, belonging to a close friend from America who just arrived. According to Jim, when she entered, she was stunned by the scene: clothes strewn about, wine spilled on the carpet, smelly fast food, and underwear tossed under the sofa. Must be the kind of guests Rick and Jessie personally take care of, Lisa thought to herself, then began to clean. While picking up trash under the cabinet, she discovered a high-end leather wallet, its flap open, revealing a thick wad of cash and an American passport. Lisa was horrified. She immediately placed the wallet back in the cabinet drawer where it had fallen from, then continued cleaning without touching anything else. But as she left the room, a sense of unease crept into her heart, and it wasn't wrong. The next morning, the entire hotel was in an uproar. A VIP guest from America lost his wallet, with over $10,000 inside. Lisa felt a chill down her spine. She was the only one in the room last night. When she entered the changing room, all eyes turned to her. Beth, a colleague she had barely ever spoken to, was the first to speak. "You were the one on duty for room 123 last night, right?" Lisa nodded. "Yes, but I didn't take anything. I saw the wallet fall under the cabinet and put it back inside." Trina shook her head with a faint smile. "Saw money and weren't tempted. Who here believes you're that honest?" Jessie crossed her arms, leaning against a metal locker, her voice as flat as ice. "I guess your cleaning salary isn't enough to pay for your old lady's medical bills." "Huh." Lisa clenched her fists, trying to remain calm. Jim entered, his face grim. "Everyone quiet. We will check every personal locker. Anyone with nothing to hide has nothing to fear." Everyone's locker was empty. Finally, it was Lisa's locker. Jim personally opened it, and the wallet was sitting right there, the cash still inside. Everyone held their breath. Lisa could barely stand. "Impossible. I didn't put it in there," she stammered, her eyes red. Jim roared, still denying it. "Isn't this enough evidence?" Lisa turned to Jessie. She was smiling, a triumphant smile. Lisa understood immediately. This was a trap, and she was the prey. As she was dragged to the administrative director's office, Lisa could only cling to a single ray of hope: Alvin, the only person who had ever listened to her. He stood there, hands in his pockets, silent. When their eyes met, Alvin just nodded slightly, as if telling her not to be afraid. But Jim wouldn't let go. He ranted on and on. She's greedy, a liar, and she stole a guest's property. I demand her immediate dismissal. Lisa was speechless. No one believed her. Not a single person stood up for her until a knock on the door was heard. Mr. Rodney entered, his kind face holding something very familiar. A phone with a tiny camera attached. "Please watch this video," he said, his voice calm. The entire meeting room fell silent. On the screen, Jesse, Trina, Rick, Jim, together, planning to plant the wallet in Lisa's locker. Clear, undeniable. And that was just the beginning. Lisa was exonerated, but she had no idea the man holding the phone was not just a janitor who knew how to be grateful. He was the silent storm approaching the center of the rotten system, and Lisa, unknowingly, was the one chosen to rebuild everything from scratch. Even though Mr. Rodney had presented the video recording the setup, even though Alvin had confirmed he would suspend all proceedings for further investigation. But the truth didn't easily wash away the slander, because in a place like Hargrave Royale, rumors spread faster than truth. The next morning, when Lisa walked into the break room, the entire room suddenly fell silent. Trina was reapplying her lipstick, looking at her through the mirror and whispering, "Watch your wallet." "Beth, who knows, she might slip it into your bag like she did with her own locker." Beth laughed. Mary turned her face away. Lisa stood still, not because she was afraid, but because she was too used to the silence tinged with contempt. She continued to work as usual, but people started to avoid her. No one wanted to share a shift. No one wanted to be in the same elevator. Sometimes, when she mopped the hallway, they would walk around her, as if she were the very stain they were afraid to clean. Even those who had once smiled at Lisa now changed their attitude. Trina would occasionally mumble, "It's strange that someone like that isn't fired." And Jessie, despite having been summoned to the board of directors, still acted unperturbed. She casually ate lunch in the cafeteria, still wore heavy makeup, still laughed and talked with guests. Even when Lisa walked by, Jessie would say loudly, "Some snakes are too slippery. They strangle people and still pretend to cry." Lisa didn't respond. She pursed her lips and walked quickly, but inside she was starting to break. The breaking point came one evening, when she finished her shift and was walking to the bus stop as usual. A black van pulled up. The door opened and a hand grabbed her, pulling her inside before she could scream. It was dark in the van. Only the heavy breathing of 3 unfamiliar men could be heard. "You know too much," one of them said, his voice low and cold as ice. Lisa trembled. "Who are you?" "I won't say anything. I don't know anything." The second man brought his face close to hers. "If you open your mouth, your grandparents won't live in peace. Understand?" Lisa nodded. tears streaming down her face. She couldn't see their faces clearly, but the fear was seared into her memory. After being pushed out at a dark intersection, she sat slumped on the curb, hands covering her face, tears flowing uncontrollably. No one believed her. No one protected her. And now, she had become the target of something much darker. Lisa didn't tell her grandparents anything. That night, she pretended everything was fine, still bought pastries, still made her grandfather laugh, and brewed tea for her grandmother as usual. But behind her back was a shattered soul. She sat huddled in her small bedroom, where the dim light cast shadows on the old family photo placed on her nightstand. She whispered, "Mom, if you were still alive, what would you do? Should I keep going, or is it okay if I give up?" No one answered, only the ticking of the clock and the sound of Lisa's heart breaking in the silence. The next morning, she went to church, alone, sitting in the last pew, silently clasping her hands in prayer. It was at that moment she heard a familiar male voice from the other side of the pews. "What are you praying for, Lisa?" She turned. It was Alvin. In that moment, amidst the sunlight streaming through the stained glass window, amidst all the crushing pressure, Lisa said nothing. She just pursed her lips, squared her shoulders, and finally burst into tears, not out loud, just tears falling when her heart had no place left to hide, ever since meeting Alvin in the church. Lisa felt something very small had changed, not in the world around her, but within herself. The fear was still there, but it no longer constricted her chest as before. Amidst the whispers, the contemptuous glances, she began to observe more, listen more. And for the first time, she decided not to back down. The next morning, while Jessie still acted as if nothing had happened, Lisa quietly stepped into the elevator and pressed the button for the 7th floor. The 7th floor, an area rarely occupied by guests. Officially, temporarily closed for maintenance according to internal announcements, but frequently visited by staff with heavy makeup, strange attire, and furtive movements. Lisa used to think it was just her imagination, but this time she needed to know the truth. The elevator doors opened. She held her breath. At the end of the hallway, the door to room 708 was slightly ajar, and Jessie, Rick, Trina, along with a few strange men, were busy preparing something bright lights. A camera, a sexy cosplay outfit spread on the bed. Lisa was stunned. She didn't dare approach, just silently turned around and pressed the elevator button. A big question arose in her mind. What are they doing in a hotel room with a camera, and why are there so many non-staff faces there? That afternoon, Jessie continued to tease Lisa in the hallway, "So still playing the good person, or maybe you should change careers while you still can." Lisa didn't answer. She just stood up straight, looked directly into Jessie's eyes, and asked, "What are you selling? Jessie smiles or honor?" Jessie froze for half a second, then narrowed her eyes. "Are you threatening me?" Lisa replied softly, but as sharp as a blade. "No." "I'm just warning you the truth will surface sooner or later." Jessie walked away, but from her eyes, Lisa clearly saw fear. That evening, while cleaning a room on the 6th floor, Lisa heard hurried footsteps in the hallway. She peeked through the door and saw Trina sneaking by, carrying a large handbag, her makeup unusually heavy even though she wasn't on shift. Without hesitation, Lisa followed. Reaching the 7th floor, she hid behind a wall and witnessed Trina open the door to room 712, a room that had been sealed off because it needed electrical system repairs. And in an instant, she understood everything. This wasn't just a shady side job for a few individuals, but an entire ring exploiting the hotel as a location for illegal filming, possibly involving the same people who had kidnapped and threatened her. Lisa ran back to the break room, her heart pounding. She met Rodney, who was mopping the floor, and whispered, "I know why they hate me. Because I know what they're hiding." Rodney put down his mop, looked at her. "You are not alone. Are you ready to expose them?" Lisa nodded. He pointed to his coat pocket. "Then tomorrow, come to the manager's office at 10 a.m. Everything has been arranged. But remember, don't tell anyone, not even Alvin." Lisa was surprised. "Not even Sir Alvin should know." Rodney smiled. "You'll understand why. Just trust me." That night, Lisa didn't sleep. She sat by her grandmother's bed, holding her frail, wrinkled hand, and whispered, "Grandma, if I get fired tomorrow, I won't be sad. I just want to live according to how you taught me." And Grandma Lucy, in a semi-conscious state, only said one sentence: "What's right always needs someone brave enough to hold on to it." The next morning, at 9:58 am, Lisa walked into the administrative floor hallway, her heart pounding so hard that her hand trembled as she knocked on the door of the large meeting room. She was invited in, along with Alvin, the executive director, department heads, and even Jim, sitting with his arms crossed, his face smug as if he were innocent. Trina and Jessie were also present, looking annoyed to see Lisa invited to a meeting. "What is she doing here?" Jessie blurted out. "Probably wants to cry to be forgiven again." Trina sneered. Lisa said nothing. Exactly 10 o'clock. The door opened. "Mr. Rodney walked in, still wearing his janitor uniform, but today he carried a black leather briefcase. Jim immediately stood up. "You again. Who allowed you into the management meeting room?" Rodney smiled, not answering. He just opened the briefcase, took out a large phone, placed it on the table, and connected it to the TV screen behind him. A video appeared. The scene: Jessie and Trina in cosplay outfits, Rick setting up the camera, Jim counting cash, assigning room shifts to each person, and the entire segment where they discussed how to intimidate Lisa, then hired someone to plant the wallet in her locker. The entire meeting room fell silent. Alvin's face turned pale. The administrative director clenched his fists. Jessie jumped up. "This is fake, edited. It's not real." Jim slammed the table. "I'll sue you for invasion of privacy." At that moment, Rodney began to remove his gloves. Then he slowly removed his fake beard, wig, and peeled off thin layers of skin from his face. Within a minute, In front of everyone, the filthy janitor transformed into an elderly gentleman with neatly combed silver hair, a resolute face, and sharp, cold eyes. Alvin exclaimed, "Sir, Rodrigo Pontalba." The entire room seemed to freeze. Rodrigo Pontalba, the executive chairman of Pontalba International, was the man who had been posing as a janitor for over a month. He turned to Jesse, his voice calm but firm. "You think I don't know what you're doing on the 7th floor? You think no one recorded the insults you hurled at Lisa? I don't just know. I witnessed it firsthand." Rodrigo looked at Jim. "You were once my trusted manager for this hotel chain, but you turned this place into a den for pornographic filmmaking, coercing employees, and punishing decent people." Jim yelled, "I was framed. Lisa is his accomplice. She seduced Alvin, colluded to bring me down." Rodrigo stepped closer, looking directly into his eyes. "You are in a building that I own. Everything you say is now just a worthless excuse." Right at that moment, the police entered. An officer read out an arrest warrant, accompanied by a series of evidence collected from hidden cameras, messages, and IP data from illegal video uploads. Jesse wailed. Trina tried to run but was restrained. Jim struggled but was handcuffed on the spot. Lisa stood silently, her hand clutching the hem of her blouse. In her eyes there was no triumph, only relief. She didn't need revenge, because the truth had done it for her. Rodrigo turned to Lisa. "You can breathe now. Lisa, your nightmare is over." Alvin walked over, patting her gently on the shoulder. "We knew you were innocent from the start, but if we had intervened sooner, we wouldn't have been able to uncover this entire ring." Lisa choked up. I don't blame anyone. I was just afraid. If no one believed me, I wouldn't have the strength to stand up." Rodrigo placed a hand on her shoulder. "You did stand up, even when no one else was by your side. And because of that, you deserve more than an apology." 2 days after the shocking unmasking at Hargrave Royale, the atmosphere in the hotel changed completely. The whispers disappeared. The suspicious glances were replaced by quiet respect. Jesse, Jim, Trina, Rick, all had been arrested or suspended for further investigation. The 7th floor was sealed off. Federal police began their investigation. And Lisa, once considered a thief, a fake good girl, was now the most talked about person. Not because she had won, but because she hadn't given up. On Monday morning, Lisa was invited to the executive office. She walked in to see Alvin sitting next to Rodrigo Pontalba, no longer the old janitor, but a gentleman in a sophisticated grey suit, his hair neatly combed, his demeanor dignified, but his eyes still holding their characteristic warmth. "Sit down, child," Rodrigo invited, his voice gentle. Lisa said shyly, Did I do something wrong?" Rodrigo smiled. "You did everything right, and because of that, I want to say 2 things today." Alvin nodded, handing Lisa a thick envelope. "This is your appointment letter. From today, you are officially the manager of the housekeeping department. Jim's old position is now yours. Lisa was stunned. Her eyes widened. Her mouth moved, but no words came out. Rodrigo continued. I witnessed you handle pressure, confront injustice, and still choose to hold on to kindness. Someone like that cannot mop floors forever. You must lead. Lisa burst into tears. For the first time, it was tears of happiness. Thank you both for believing in me, even when I no longer believed in myself. Rodrigo stood up, holding her hand tightly. I don't bestow trust. I just return it to those who deserve it. A few weeks later, Lisa started her first shift as a manager. She wore a new uniform, a shiny name tag, but instead of giving orders, she began her morning by going to each workstation, asking employees, "Did you sleep well last night? Is your shift going okay today?" No one gave orders. No one needed to shout. No one was afraid of being docked pay for misspeaking. The community notice board that Jessie had taken down was now re-erected with handwritten notes, thank you notes from guests, short poems by employees, a fair duty roster, and even a scribbled line from an intern. Here, for the first time, I feel valued. One evening, as Lisa was doing her logbook, Alvin approached, handing her a letter from Chairman Rodrigo. He's on a business trip to Europe, but he wanted you to have this. Lisa opened it. Inside was a full scholarship contract for hotel management at the Pontalba Institute in Switzerland, accompanied by a handwritten note. Kindness cannot buy a title, but it always finds a way to grow. Lisa cried again. That night, when she got home, she hugged Grandma Lucy and Grandpa Casey tightly. Our granddaughter. The world finally sees her. Her grandmother whispered through tears. Lisa replied, "It's not because I'm good, but because I didn't give up." Grandma. 2 months after Jim and Jessie were arrested, Hargrave Royale officially announced a complete overhaul of its recruitment and internal management systems. Chairman Rodrigo Pontalba sent out a company-wide announcement with the first line, "We don't need the best people. We need the best people to be the root of our company culture." Lisa, now the housekeeping manager, still maintained her habit of arriving early every morning, walking through each row of rooms, shaking hands with staff, and leaving small handwritten notes on their desks. Today, you are the reason a terrible place becomes more livable. If you're tired, please remember you are not invisible. She didn't change to fit the manager's chair. She made the chair learn to fit her heart. Rodrigo continued to write handwritten letters to Lisa from Switzerland, where he was establishing a training center for leadership through humanity. In his most recent letter, he wrote, "Lisa, during the days I disguised myself as a janitor, you not only helped me see the true nature of my subordinates, you also showed me sometimes the person who changes an entire organization isn't the CEO, but a young woman, quietly giving her lunch to a stranger." On a rainy afternoon, Lisa stood under the hotel eaves, watching the people pass by. She suddenly saw an old man huddled against the rain, his clothes torn, his hands trembling. Without hesitation, she ran over, took off the coat she was wearing, draped it over the old man's shoulders, and then invited him to sit and rest at the reception desk. When a receptionist tried to stop her because it would affect the hotel's image, Lisa just said softly, This is the image this hotel wants to have. That night, at home, she took an old photo frame, a picture of her grandmother, still healthy, sewing clothes for her as a child, and pasted a small note underneath, "Live kindly, not to be praised, but so that when the world turns its back, you can still stand firm on your own." A week later, Lisa was honored as the inspiration of the month, not for sales, not for achievements, but because she had done the simplest yet most important thing. She was once called an outcast, a worthless floor cleaner. But she herself was the one who cleaned up an entire rotten system. And if you're feeling too small in this world, remember, one act of kindness can be the first spark in an entire journey of change.